Hello everyone, in this video I'll be translating and summarizing the latest Urdu broadcast by Moeed Pirzada to make it accessible for our English-speaking audience. Let's go through the key developments and insights in Moeed Pirzada's words.
I spent a lot of time in reading and writing, and I've been trying to understand the various tragedies and conflicts in American politics, the end result of which you are now seeing on America's streets, in the form of clashes involving immigration and customs enforcement. I hope in upcoming programs and days I'll present a lot of analysis on these issues of American politics. The reference of current situation to North Africa and the Middle East is important because at the junction of those two cultural spheres there is a country that is part of both civilizations. Egypt. Egypt is as much a part of Africa as it is of Middle Eastern civilization and the Muslim civilization. It was also part of the Roman Empire. Cairo, the capital of Egypt, has long been a deep center of Muslim civilization. Right now, a very important meeting is taking place there between Israel and Hamas. But the strange thing about this meeting is that Hamas, whose future is supposed to be determined by it, and in front of whom a detailed 20-point agenda and conditions have been placed that it must accept, has no direct representation in the meeting. Hamas is being represented there by the intelligence services of Qatar and Egypt. On the other side, Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who many thought might personally be part of the negotiations, has sent a very high-power delegation led by his trusted Minister for Strategic Affairs. Shin Bet, Israel's domestic intelligence, is present, like Mossad is the external intelligence. The head of Shin Bet is also in that delegation. Also present in Cairo are two very important emissaries representing US President Donald Trump. One is Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a name the world first noticed in 2020 during the Abraham Accords, as Kushner was broadly described as an architect of the Abraham Accords. With him are Trump's envoys, including Steve Witkoff, who has deep ties with Pakistan. I should mention that Steve Witkoff's son has strong connections with Pakistan. He heads a cryptocurrency company and visited during the short India-Pakistan conflict, holding an important meeting with Pakistan's then army chief, who was not yet a field marshal. In June, during the army chief's first meeting with Donald Trump, Steve Witkoff and his son played a significant role. This is an important meeting, and I want to present research and my analysis on it. But before that, I must say my heart is very, very worried. I see many dangers in this entire process. I feel these 20 points are a victor's justice and victor's demands. They offer nothing for the Palestinians or Hamas. No options have been given to them. They were given just 72 hours. Either accept this or be ready for total destruction. Even if they accept, will the process of destruction stop? I have no confidence in that. I will present what the best possible publications and sources are saying. But before all that, let me cover a few Pakistan-related issues that have been widely discussed in the past 24 to 48 hours. When we look at developments in Pakistan, it's important to remember that many developments, statements and counterstatements that are exaggerated. Everything is presented as a breaking development and a huge story, but often there is nothing substantial behind the noise. For example, over the past 48 hours, there's been a lot of noise that a serious clash is happening between the Pakistan People's Party and PMLN leaders, Mariam Nawaz and PPP leaders, a war of words. The latest example is that Shahbaz Memon made very tough remarks about local government elections in Punjab, and in reply, Asma Bukhari strongly responded to Shahbaz Memon. I didn't want to spend time on this, but I did look into whether this holds serious significance, and once again I found it's just theatrics. These two so-called political parties are not real political movements, but two dynasties and their retainers. On one side, the Zardari clan and their followers. On the other, the Sharif clan and their followers. Their interests are deeply intertwined inside Pakistan. They are so interdependent that the whole story that PPP has offered PTI to secure Imran Khan's release within a month or so is nonsense. They have no capacity to do that. They cannot do such a thing. Another story much discussed in the last 24 hours in Pakistan is that Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has reached Malaysia on an important visit where he received a grand red carpet welcome, and some strategic developments between Pakistan and Malaysia are underway. If you look closely at Pakistan's own newspapers, you realise this is a gradual butter engagement process that began with Imran Khan in 2019. In 2024, Anwar Ibrahim visited Pakistan, probably in August or October 2024. And at that time, it was decided that Pakistan's Prime Minister would visit. These are routine engagements moving slowly forward. There is nothing extremely consequential right now. What impressed me most in the past 24 hours was that millions of people from Pakistan and around the world expressed their feelings on Imran Khan's 73rd birthday, their love, devotion, respect for him. Not only Pakistanis, but many non-Pakistanis took part. For example, Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad, who served in the United States, at the United Nations, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and is close to the Trump administration, recorded a very warm message for Imran Khan. Likewise, Steve Hunker, a professor at Johns Hopkins University, whom I interviewed some time ago, also sent many messages for Imran Khan. During this same period, the Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami, Hafiz Naeem-ur-Rahman, in a rally about Palestine, reportedly criticized Imran Khan, accusing the person in Adiala jail, who comments on every issue, of never mentioning Palestine. This saddened me. I don't want to defend whether Imran Khan mentioned Palestine or not, but I feel regret at Hafiz Naeem-ur-Rahman's regression. Years ago, when I was a television anchor, I had considerable interaction with Hafiz Naeem-ur-Rahman before he became Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami. I was impressed by his principled character and thought he could reform Jamaat if given a role. He had asked me what they should do and whether they should align with PTI on some issues. He felt Jamaat-e-Islami was not growing and the new youth weren't joining. I often found Hafiz Naeem-ur-Rahman pleasant and good. But in recent years, after becoming Amir, his mental shift and regression is a very sad story. I feel sorry. Many people have experienced similar changes. Before leaving Pakistan, in my last few years in Pakistani television, I felt like a corpse on the TV screen with no spirit, doing shows by rote. So I understand what may be happening with Hafiz Naeem-ur-Rahman. The social and political system can turn a living man into a living corpse who starts saying things to please generals. For that system, one can only feel sympathy and sorrow. One concerns Pakistan's DGISI, Director General Inter-Services Intelligence, General Asim Malik, who is retiring on the 6th of October as his term completes. There are 2 or 3 speculations about this. First, there has been no farewell for him. In the army, there is a convention that when an officer retires, a farewell is organized. There is no such news. That suggests perhaps he is not actually retiring. Second, even if he retires, he was also given the additional charge of National Security Advisor in April, supposedly so he could better coordinate with the United States National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, for example, Mark Rubio, in order to maintain that link. When he was given the additional charge of National Security Advisor, reports said that even when he retires from DGISI, he might continue as National Security Advisor. A third speculation is that if he retires, he might come to Washington as Pakistan's ambassador, which would be very interesting because his predecessor, General Nadeem Anjum, also tried hard to become ambassador to Washington and later attempted Australia as well. Canada had also been tried, but it was refused from all sides. At that time, an insider in Washington told me that the intelligence community's perspective here was that no intelligence chief, whether from Kashmiri areas or Turkey or anywhere, should be allowed to come to the United States, as a diplomat immediately after retirement. Why shouldn't they? Because an intelligence chief has many links, connections, and an understanding of the American system. If he comes here, that would not be appropriate. He could play games with his information. But now the situation has changed. The difference is that then President Biden was in office, and the then Secretary of State and the President themselves had little access to Pakistan's system or to the Field Marshal or Pakistan's generals and their GHQ. But now the reality is that United States President Donald Trump is infatuated. He is enamored with Pakistan's Field Marshal. He considers him a very strong man, the Field Marshal, the Field Marshal. And similarly, there has been a straightforward relationship with Marco Rubio. General Asim Malik himself has a close relationship with Donald Trump and his circle, such that they easily break conventional rules and regulations. So it will be interesting to see whether General Asim Malik will be able to retire from that post and come here. Now, let's come to the development that, without doubt, can be considered the most interesting development of the past 72 hours. You could even call it the hub of all developments. When you hear that Pakistan recently offered, during the Field Marshal's second visit to the United States, to develop and operate a port in Balochistan on a Pakistani site for American entities. 3 days ago, the Financial Times reported this story. I tweeted about it. I also developed a story about it on Global Well Space, which I'll try to show on screen, but I wasn't able to discuss it earlier. Initially, the offer was denied. Then it was accepted. We now have many additional details. First, it was denied. Then, security officials speaking to Pakistani newspapers acknowledged it. They said it's a private offer and no finalization has taken place, and that it is a private site. Private parties make such offers all the time. Keep in mind that ports and shipping are a federal subject. No matter how many private parties make offers, unless the federal government, and in Pakistan's case that effectively means the Field Marshal, General Asim Munir, signals approval, a private party cannot realistically offer such a thing to the United States. I tried to get some feedback from the United States side as well. The current impression here is that this is being viewed as a very interesting and attractive offer. The United States has such extensive bases in the region that they could easily decide on it, but the Pakistani side's offer has many aspects. It is a multi-dimensional offer. First, the Pakistani leadership, General Asim Munir and his team, understand that the longer you can keep the United States and the West happy, the longer you can repress, suppress, torture and exploit your own people at home without facing any risk. The road to rule in Pakistan passes through Washington. As long as Washington is with you, you can govern Pakistan with ease. Internal dynamics will be managed. When you suppress, beat and oppress people, while the West supports you and your financial institutions back you, your position is secure. Those who have watched my programs continuously since 2022 know I have repeatedly commented on the situation there. So that is one aspect of this move. A second aspect is that whether or not the United States accepts the offer, Pakistan's team demonstrates sincerity to the Americans. In US think tanks, Congress and the administration, people constantly talk about Pakistan's close defensive relationship with China. That relationship is seen as dangerous. They often bring up Gwadar port and perceive it as a defensive posture. Now, Pakistan is saying it has no objection. Just as our commercial port at Gwadar on the Arabian Sea is linked with China, similarly, an American company or the American system can develop a commercial facility in Balochistan. It would make mineral development easier and would be useful. There is a need for such a port. A third aspect: if you involve American companies, the corporate world, the US government and intelligence as stakeholders in Balochistan, then support that insurgents receive from India or elsewhere becomes delegitimized. After all, BLA, BRA, the Baloch insurgent groups, have already been designated as terrorist organizations by the United States and international bodies. If the US has financial and strategic involvement in Balochistan, then India's support for those groups can be exposed and undermined. So this is a smart, multidimensional move. Now we will have to see whether any real progress occurs. Everything I've told you so far I described from Pakistan's broad interest perspective. But it's possible some of you, who might not be sufficiently patriotic or who do not love the homeland, will think, we have a close relationship with China. We have relations with Iran as well. If we give ports to America that could be used for other purposes tomorrow, is that really in Pakistan's broader interest? That question arises, what is Pakistan? There is a dictum or code you've heard. Rule number 1 is the boss is always right. Rule number 2 is if you think the boss is not right, check rule number 1 again. Here the rules are Pakistan equals the Pakistan Army. And rule number 2, the Pakistan Army equals the Army Chief. So whatever the Army Chief thinks or decides is considered in Pakistan's broader interest. A well-educated Baloch woman, I don't know where she is, apparently affiliated with the Baloch Yazidi Movement Committee named Sia Baloch, wrote a very long, learned tweet raising questions. She said the Baloch are not against development, they welcome development. But once security becomes attached to development, prisons start being built for our people, and Baloch people have no input. She made lengthy objections to this. I sympathize with Sia Baloch and with Pakistanis who do not think in terms of Pakistan's broader state interests. Returning to Cairo, Hamas and Israel, this is where the story of this video began. First, to clarify. The so-called meeting between Hamas and Israel is not happening in Cairo city proper, but in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt's famous tourist resort, some 300 to 400 kilometers away. The Hamas delegation, led by Yahya al-Khalil, who Israel attempted to assassinate on the 9th of September, arrived here on Sunday night. The Israeli delegation, led by Israel's Minister for Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, along with the Shin Bet head, were due to arrive on Monday. The American delegation that includes President Donald Trump's son-in-law also was due to arrive Monday. I've heard that DGISPR, the Pakistan Army spokesman, spoke to Pakistani media journalists and expressed the view that if the Palestinian Authority and Hamas have accepted Donald Trump's proposal or welcomed it, then what can we do? Nothing could be further from the truth. If the DGISPR actually said that, I don't know his exact words, but if he did say it, his statement would be extremely insensitive, callous and tone-deaf. The reason is that Hamas has been given no options. They have been told there is a 20-point agenda or proposal which they must accept within 72 hours. Otherwise, they should prepare for annihilation. Even if they accept, there are many difficult, complex negotiating conditions. It remains to be seen how much Egypt and Qatar, which are helping them, can assist in negotiations. A few important points I want to present. First, interesting power dynamics have been revealed between US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Those dynamics show that both agree on one point. They want, first and foremost, the hostages, the living and the remains of the dead, to be returned. If that happens, both sides' political issues will be mitigated to some extent. Netanyahu senses that the latest surveys show about 72% of Israelis want the war to stop and the hostages returned. He is trying to present this proposal as a diplomatic and strategic success, and he's shaping his narrative that this whole proposal is the result of his diplomacy and strategic achievements. That gives Trump a political windfall. For Trump, it's huge politically. The powerful Jewish lobby in the US, the right-of-centre Christian evangelicals and white supremacists, all would rally to him if the hostages are released. It would bolster his resume for a Nobel Peace Prize and add points to his record. But after the hostages are returned, what then? Will there be any certainty of peace in Gaza? At this stage, there is no assurance. Many interesting facts confront me. Axios, which I often call a pro-Israel publication, but which has deep access to the US deep state, reported that when Trump learned Hamas had accepted the 20-point proposal, he excitedly called Netanyahu. Netanyahu responded coldly, "Mr. President, they have not accepted it. This is impossible." According to Israeli newspapers, Netanyahu was shaken. He felt isolated. The world and Western leadership were largely against him, and only the US president supported him. Trump reportedly said Netanyahu had no choice but to accept Trump's approach. Within 2 or 3 days, the White House released a photo showing Netanyahu on a prepared script, apologizing on the phone to the Qatari emir and the Qatari prime minister. Images which were examined carefully in Israel. According to the New York Times, Trump has support from Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia in this matter. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar are financially linked to Trump, and Qatar's reaction after the 9th of September attack has been taken seriously by Trump's team. Sources told me confidently that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has developed a good relationship with Trump. Thus, the US administration is under pressure from Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, and it must balance the situation. Additionally, images from Europe over the past 72 hours, protests in Spain, Italy, and more recently big demonstrations in Barcelona and Amsterdam, have had an effect on both Israeli and US deep states. US analysts say that if peace is not achieved now, Israel's global image will be severely damaged. This is the set of circumstances in which Netanyahu's strategic goal remains to get the hostages, then find a way to disentangle himself from the entire debacle, because his aim is to purge Gaza of Hamas and ensure a Palestinian state does not emerge. Netanyahu has said in a UN speech that only about 9% of the UN General Assembly supports a Palestinian state, and that 91% do not. He uses this to justify not allowing a Palestinian state. So the question is whether US President Trump is genuinely serious about peace or about a Palestinian state. Maintated. This stage, there is no substantive evidence that he is. This is the situation, and it makes me very worried about the future of everything unfolding right now.
That wraps up our translation of Moeed Pirzada's video. I hope this English version helped you understand his message better. Please like, share, and subscribe to Awami Lens to help our community grow. Don't forget to leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this effort.